as we enter into the third quarter, Rutledge, and what I can do, I can just share, real briefly, a little bit of the background on the Super League. You might have heard about that within the sporting world in the past couple of weeks. In essence, what was kind of tried to put together behind closed doors was some of the top 15 teams from Europe, England, kind of the big five leagues of Europe. So England, France, Spain, Germany, and Italy. And what they were going to do was create a 15 team league and then invite five more to kind of do a little bit of promotion and relegation every year and have their own Super League. The main reason for that Super League was to be able to fight for larger, more lucrative TV contracts. Right, Champions League has pretty good sized TV contracts, but it is kind of hard because they don't play a ton of games. TV money gets spread probably a little too thin, especially with those teams that qualify at the very beginning. And I mean, now in America with Champions League on CBS, and CBS not wanting to be a good streaming partner with a lot of folks, it's kind of tough to watch things like that. So a couple weeks ago, a bunch of teams got together and said, "Hey, we're going to create a Super League." You're looking at Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Tottenham, Atletico, Barcelona, Real Madrid, AC Milan for Kaká, Inter Milan, and Juventus. And it just caused controversy because it really felt like a corporatization of soccer. Soccer is very corporate as it is right now, but it kind of really felt like it was taking the game out more so from the fans. That's at least from the fans' perspective. So that's a little bit of the background. It seems like it's not going to work. It seems like it's in disarray, not going to launch before it even got off the ground. But Rutledge, give us your quick take on what you think about the Super League. Could it have worked? Things like that.
Yeah, so I want to mention some other things, especially for we know that we are a show listened to uh, in many different countries, and I want to share for a lot of our especially American viewers who don't follow the beautiful game or football as it's called, proper football as a good friend of mine calls it. This leaves out some other countries. If you notice that those teams are only from three countries, they're from England, they're from Spain, and they're from Italy. No teams from Germany were participating. FIFA actually came out and say if you played in the Super League, you wouldn't be allowed to play in the Euro tournament or in the World Cup, and no teams from France were participating. So Bayern Munich, which has been one of the greatest teams recently and had just been a powerhouse, wouldn't have been in the Super League, even though
They
that's what the
got they
Super
got
League is.
offered to be in the Super League.
Right, and they said no.
They turned it down. Yep.
Bundesliga together, which is the league in Germany altogether, turned it down because Dortmund was considered as well. PSG or Paris Saint Germain was not in the Super League, and they're currently in the semifinals for the Champions League. So my take on it here is, you know, if you look at it, so there's two ways to look at it. Pat McAfee did a video, and we like Pat McAfee on this show and talk about him a little bit. He did a video when he first came out and he heard about this, and he was like, "Oh, let's go, boys," which is a quote he always says, like, "Let's go, boys, let's put it together. This is going to be great, these monster teams." And he said he got buried on Twitter and actually talked about it the next day on his show to kind of put out there that he didn't understand what was going on. On the flip side of that, James Corden, during his monologue on the Late Late Show, took 10 minutes out of the show time to say how absolutely offended he was because the mindset of proper football is totally different than an American sports team. The Super League to me felt like the NFL. We're going to take teams, we're going to put them in there, we're going to put well-known name brands that I know I could walk into a jersey shop with you as you shopped for your polos, Connor, and pick out all the jerseys and look at which ones are which. You know, they're big name teams that are recognizable. It would garner world attention, but for these franchises that have existed hundreds of years, that's not what this is all about. And I'll give a good example to someone I saw take a slab at this. So in the Premier League, The team that I kind of follow and has my heart is the Wolverhampton Wanderers, or the Wolverhampton Wolves, who they make a good run. On their Twitter, they proclaim themselves the Premier League champions for 2018-2019. Because if these other teams could proclaim themselves to be top level teams that are most important in the world, and some of these, like Arsenal, haven't been very dominant, Tottenham's been okay. It really kind of offended everybody. So I think the idea is it's very American, and it's just not what sports are about across the pond. No, in the States, we would have loved it if it happened with us, if we reorganized MLS, but across the pond, it's just not what they're about. Your team represents your city. And since they don't have as many large professional sports, that's your identity. So that's my take on the Super League, what I thought about it. And I wasn't surprised it crumbled. I was surprised it crumbled as fast as it did, though. It went down quick.
Yeah, and I think that, Rutledge, you talk about, okay, we would have done this like the NFL. I don't think in some ways it's like the NFL. It would have been like the NFL if you would have just had the Patriots and the Cowboys and the Seahawks and, the Saints say, we're just going to play each other throughout the course of the season. And you got fans in Cleveland that are saying, are you kidding? What makes you any better than us? I think that you've got a lot of pride as it relates to these teams that weren't Super League invitees. And the other thing that is so critical as it relates to soccer or proper football is that promotion and relegation element. Not that Man United, if Man United actually were to have gotten relegated, I mean, that would turn the world upside down. If Barcelona is playing in La Liga League Two next year, that's wildness. But there is always that potential to get relegated, which makes soccer a ton of fun. I wish MLS would put promotion relegation in. So I think that these teams, it felt like, number one, you were ripping part of that soul and that culture out of these leagues, especially in England, and I'm sure in other places too. We just probably can identify with England the most. But then number two, it felt a little phony because it lacked that promotion and relegation element to it.
I will say that something else to consider for all of our listeners out there is a lot of the owners of these clubs, I think it was especially in the UK or in England, they're American. So not understanding that culture of the sport really impacted. The owner for Liverpool was actually American. He issued a very strong public apology for even talking about the idea of the Super League and why